The wind howled like a wounded animal across the outskirts of Seoul. Snow fell so heavily that the roads had almost disappeared beneath layers of white. Visibility was poor. The temperature had dropped far below freezing. Most people were already home, wrapped in blankets and drinking something warm. But on a lonely stretch of road near the edge of the city, a man lay motionless in the snow. His black coat was torn. Blood stained the white ground beneath him. His hands were freezing. His breathing was shallow. And with every passing minute, death moved a little closer. Several cars drove past him. Some slowed down. Others barely looked. Nobody stopped. Nobody wanted trouble. Nobody wanted to risk getting involved. The man could barely keep his eyes open. His vision blurred. His body felt heavier with every second. Then headlights appeared again. Another vehicle. He expected it to keep driving, like all the others. Instead, it slowed, then stopped. The driver's door opened. A young woman stepped out into the freezing storm. Her face immediately tightened with concern. She hurried toward him. "What happened to you?" The man tried to answer. His lips barely moved. His voice was little more than a whisper. "Don't let them find me." Then everything went dark. The woman froze. She looked around. Nothing. Only snow. Only darkness. Only silence. She should have called emergency services and left. She should have driven away. She should have minded her own business. But something inside her refused. And that single decision would change both their lives forever. If you love Korean billionaire romance and mafia love stories like this, subscribe now to @Physial_Threads and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Nadege Laurent had spent most of her life helping people. Some called it kindness. Others called it stubbornness. She simply believed that if someone was suffering and you could help, then you should. The world already had enough people looking away. At 28 years old, Nadege worked as a nurse at a private hospital in Seoul. The work was exhausting. Long shifts, endless patients, little sleep, constant pressure. Yet she rarely complained. Her co-workers often wondered how she stayed so cheerful. The truth was simple. Life had taught her gratitude. She lived alone in a modest apartment. Nothing luxurious. Nothing impressive. Just a small place that felt like home. A tiny kitchen. A comfortable couch. A few books. A collection of plants she somehow managed to keep alive despite her schedule. She wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. But she was content. At least most days. Tonight had been particularly difficult. A double shift. Several emergency cases. Barely enough time to eat. All she wanted was a hot shower and sleep. Instead, she found herself kneeling beside a dying stranger in a snowstorm. Nadege checked his pulse. Weak. Dangerously weak. His skin felt ice cold. His injuries looked serious. Without wasting another second, she dragged him toward her car. It wasn't easy. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, heavy. Several times she nearly slipped. But somehow she managed. After finally getting him into the back seat, she blasted the heater and began driving. The nearest hospital was almost 30 minutes away. She considered taking him there. But something about his final words bothered her. "Don't let them find me." Who was looking for him? Why was he afraid? Why had he been left in the middle of nowhere? Questions flooded her mind. Then she noticed something. A black luxury SUV appeared in her rearview mirror, following her. At first she thought it was coincidence. Then another vehicle appeared. And another. Her stomach tightened. Instinct told her something wasn't right. Without thinking, she took an unexpected turn. The vehicles continued straight. Gone. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe exhaustion was affecting her judgment. Still, she decided against the hospital. Instead, she drove home. The stranger needed immediate treatment. And until she understood what was happening, she didn't want to risk exposing him. What she didn't know was that this decision would soon pull her into a world she never imagined existed. Hours later, the storm continued outside. Inside her apartment, Nadege carefully treated the stranger's wounds. Cuts, bruises, signs of a violent struggle. Whoever had attacked him hadn't been gentle. Fortunately, none of the injuries appeared immediately fatal. The bigger problem was hypothermia. His body temperature had dropped dangerously low. She worked carefully, methodically, like she had done countless times before. Blankets, warm fluids, monitoring, patience. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with her. She fell asleep in a chair beside the couch where the stranger rested. Morning arrived slowly. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. The storm had finally passed. Nadege woke first. For a moment, she forgot everything. Then she saw him. Still sleeping. Still alive. Relief washed over her. She prepared breakfast. Checked his condition again. Everything seemed stable. Then suddenly, his eyes opened. Dark. Sharp. Alert. The transformation was immediate. 1 second, he looked vulnerable. The next he looked dangerous. Like a predator waking from sleep. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. The silence stretched. Finally, Nadej smiled. Good morning. The man stared. Almost suspiciously. Where am I? My apartment. His gaze hardened. Why? You were freezing to death. He looked around. Assessing. Calculating. Watching every detail. It reminded her of a soldier. Or someone accustomed to danger. You should rest. I need to leave. He immediately tried sitting up. Pain shot through his body. His expression tightened. Nadej folded her arms. That was a terrible idea. He ignored her. Attempted standing. Failed. And nearly collapsed. Before he hit the floor, Nadej caught him. For a brief second their faces were inches apart. Close enough for her to notice how striking he actually was. Strong jaw. Dark eyes. Sharp features. The kind of face people remembered. The stranger looked equally surprised. As if nobody had ever caught him before. Especially not someone like her. Nadej helped him back onto the couch. You need rest. I've rested enough. No. His eyes narrowed. No. No. The firmness in her voice caught him off guard. Most people obeyed him. Most people feared him. This woman clearly didn't. And strangely, he liked that. For the next 2 days, recovery became a battle. Not against his injuries. Against his stubbornness. Every time Nadej told him to rest, he argued. Every time she told him to take medicine, he resisted. Every time she reminded him he almost died, he changed the subject. Yet despite his difficult personality, something about him intrigued her. He was educated, observant, calm under pressure, and oddly respectful. He never raised his voice, never insulted her, never acted entitled. It was as if two different people existed beneath the same face. One cold, one hidden. Meanwhile, far across the city, panic was spreading. Men in expensive suits gathered inside a luxurious penthouse. The atmosphere was tense. Fear hung in the air. Because Han Seo-jun was missing. The chairman, the leader, the man everyone believed controlled the most powerful criminal organization in Korea. Gone. Some feared he was dead. Others suspected betrayal. And one man secretly hoped both were true. That man was Kang Do-hyun, Seo-jun's closest friend. Or at least the man everyone believed was his closest friend. What nobody knew was that Do-hyun had orchestrated the attack. Years of jealousy had finally consumed him. He wanted power. He wanted control. He wanted Seo-jun's empire. And as long as Seo-jun remained alive, none of that was possible. Back in Nadej's apartment, Seo-jun stood by the window. His strength was slowly returning. Technically, he could leave now. His men were searching. His organization needed him. His enemies feared him. Yet something unexpected had happened. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Real peace. No meetings. No betrayals. No negotiations. No violence. Just silence. And a woman who expected absolutely nothing from him. When Nadej returned home after work that evening, she found him repairing a broken cabinet. She blinked. What are you doing? It was loose. So you fixed it? Yes. You didn't have to. It was bothering me. She laughed. The sound caught him completely off guard. Warm. Genuine. Beautiful. For reasons he couldn't explain, he wanted to hear it again. Days passed. Then a week. Their conversations grew longer. The walls between them slowly disappeared. Nadej learned he loved reading. Seo-jun learned she secretly enjoyed terrible romantic dramas. She discovered he was surprisingly good at cooking. He discovered she sang while cleaning. She discovered his serious expression often had dry humor. He discovered her smile could brighten even the worst day. Without realizing it, they began looking forward to seeing each other. And that frightened them both. Because feelings were developing. Feelings neither expected. Feelings neither fully understood. One evening they sat together eating dinner. Outside, snow gently fell again. Nothing dramatic. Nothing dangerous. Just peaceful. Nadej smiled. You know something? What? When I found you, I thought you were homeless. Seo-jun nearly choked. She burst into laughter. His expression was priceless. You what? You were lying in the snow. I wasn't homeless. I know that now. His eyes rolled slightly. Another thing she had somehow taught him. How to laugh. A simple thing, yet strangely rare in his life. As the laughter faded, their eyes met. Neither looked away. The atmosphere shifted. Subtle, quiet, but undeniable. Something was changing. Something dangerous. Not danger from enemies. Not danger from betrayal. A different kind of danger. The kind that begins when two hearts start caring too much. And neither person knows what comes next. Meanwhile, across Seoul, a newspaper headline quietly appeared. Most readers ignored it. One small article among hundreds. But it carried a message. A message intended for only one man. A message Seo Jun would soon see. A message that would force him to confront the life he had tried to leave behind. Because while he was learning how to smile again, the world he ruled was beginning to collapse. And very soon, the truth about Han Seo Jun would arrive at Nadej's doorstep. But what happens next changes everything. The following morning began like every other morning. At least, that was what Nadej believed. The sky was clear. The snowstorm that had nearly taken a man's life felt like a distant memory. The city had returned to its normal rhythm. People rushed to work. Traffic filled the streets. Life moved forward. But sometimes life appears normal only moments before everything changes. And neither Nadej nor Seo Jun was prepared for what was coming. Nadej woke up unusually early. The smell of breakfast drifted through her apartment. For a moment she smiled. She already knew who was in the kitchen. Only one person cooked like that. Only one person treated every meal as if it were some secret mission. She quietly walked toward the kitchen. There he was, Han Seo Jun, standing in front of the stove. Focused. Serious. Completely absorbed in preparing breakfast. The sight almost made her laugh. If someone had told her 2 weeks ago that a mysterious stranger she rescued from a snowstorm would be making breakfast in her apartment, she would have called them crazy. Yet here they were. And somehow it felt natural. Comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. You know, she said, leaning against the doorway. Normal guests don't stay this long. Seo Jun glanced at her. I'll keep that in mind. You've been keeping that in mind for 2 weeks. I was recovering. You recovered days ago. I was being cautious. She folded her arms. About what? His eyes briefly met hers. Then he returned to cooking. You asked too many questions. She smiled. And you answered too few. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. In fact, it was the opposite. It felt warm. The kind of silence people only share when they genuinely enjoy being around each other. And that realization scared Seo Jun more than any enemy ever had. Because somewhere along the way, he had stopped thinking about leaving. Every morning, he told himself he would leave tomorrow. Every night, he found another reason to stay. Tomorrow became another tomorrow. And another. And another. The truth was simple. He didn't want to leave her. Meanwhile, far across Seoul, another man was growing increasingly frustrated. Kang Do-hyun sat alone inside his office. His expensive suit was flawless. His expression wasn't. For weeks he had searched. For weeks he had waited. For weeks he had hoped. Yet Han Seo Jun remained alive. Not only alive. Missing. Invisible. And that terrified him. Because if Seo Jun returned, everything would unravel. The lies. The betrayal. The carefully constructed plans. All of it. Do-hyun stared at a photograph on his desk. It showed him standing beside Seo Jun years earlier. Both younger. Both smiling. Brothers in everything except blood. At least that was what the world believed. The reality was very different. Jealousy had slowly poisoned him. Every success Seo Jun achieved felt like another reminder of his own inadequacy. Every achievement became another wound. Every victory became another reason to hate him. Eventually, friendship transformed into resentment. Resentment became obsession. And obsession became betrayal. Now he needed Seo Jun gone forever. But what he didn't know was that fate was already working against him. Back at the apartment, Nadej prepared to leave for work. As she reached the door, Seo Jun suddenly spoke. Wait. She turned. What? He walked over, holding a scarf. Her scarf. Before she could react, he carefully wrapped it around her neck. His movements were gentle, natural, almost intimate. For a second, neither spoke. The air between them changed. Again, that same feeling, that same tension. Neither wanted to acknowledge it. Yet both felt it. There, he said quietly. You'll get cold. Nadej's heart skipped unexpectedly. She immediately looked away. Thank you. Seo Jun nodded. But as the door closed behind her, he remained standing there. Staring. Thinking. Feeling things he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. And the worst part? He liked it. He liked her smile. He liked her kindness. He liked hearing her voice after a difficult day. He liked waiting for her to come home. He liked everything. That realization should have made him happy. Instead, it terrified him. Because people like him weren't supposed to fall in love. Especially not with women like her. Women who deserved peace. Not danger. Not darkness. Not a man carrying as many secrets as he did. But what he didn't know was that Nadege was fighting the exact same battle. At the hospital, she found herself distracted. A dangerous thing for a nurse. Normally, she focused entirely on her patients. Today was different. Every few minutes, she caught herself thinking about him. Wondering if he had eaten. Wondering what he was doing. Wondering whether he would still be there when she got home. The realization frustrated her. She barely knew him. She didn't even know his full story. Yet somehow he had become important. Very important. And that scared her. Because caring always came with risks. Then something happened. Something small. Something that should have meant nothing. Yet it changed everything. Near the end of her shift, several luxury vehicles pulled into the hospital parking lot. Immediately people noticed. The vehicles were expensive. Intimidating. Out of place. Men in black suits stepped out. Not security guards. Not businessmen. Something else. Something harder. Their expressions were cold. Their movements precise. And they seemed to be searching for someone. Nadege watched from a distance. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Unease. Instinct. Fear. She didn't know why. But suddenly she wanted to get home. Fast. Very fast. Meanwhile, danger was already approaching. One of the suited men entered the hospital. Another remained outside. A third spoke quietly into an earpiece. Then they showed a photograph. A photograph of Han Seo-jun. The world around Nadege seemed to freeze. Her heart stopped. She stared. No, it couldn't be. Her eyes moved between the photograph and the memory of the man waiting at her apartment. The same face. The same eyes. The same man. Then she noticed the headline beneath the image. Han Seo-jun, chairman of the Black Dragon Group. One of Korea's most powerful and feared men. The blood drained from her face. For several seconds, she couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She couldn't move. Because suddenly everything made sense. The injuries. The fear. The mysterious words. The expensive watch. The luxury suit. The constant caution. The way he analyzed every room. The way he watched every exit. The way he carried himself. He wasn't just some stranger. He wasn't just a businessman. He was one of the most powerful men in Korea. And apparently one of the most feared. Nadege left work immediately. The drive home felt endless. Questions flooded her mind. Why hadn't he told her? How much had he hidden? What else didn't she know? Most importantly, who exactly was Han Seo-jun? When she finally arrived home, she found him sitting by the window reading a book. Calm. Relaxed. Almost peaceful. He looked up, immediately noticing something was wrong. Nadege. No answer. She simply placed the newspaper on the table. His eyes moved to the article. Then closed. Slowly. Because he instantly understood. The truth had finally arrived. The silence stretched between them. Heavy. Painful. Unavoidable. You lied to me. Her voice was quiet. But somehow that made it worse. Seo-jun stood. I didn't lie. You hid everything. I was protecting you. From what? He hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than any answer. Seo-jun. For the first time she spoke his name. Not as a stranger. Not as a friend. But as someone whose trust had been broken. What aren't you telling me? His eyes met hers. And finally, he told her. Everything. Not every detail. Not every dark chapter. But enough. Enough for her to understand. Enough for her to see the truth. The loneliness. The betrayals. The responsibilities. The enemies. The endless pressure. The life he never truly chose. When he finished speaking, neither moved. Neither spoke. Then something unexpected happened. Nadege looked past the headlines. Past the reputation. Past the fear. And saw the man who had quietly repaired her furniture. Cooked her breakfast. Wrapped her scarf around her neck. Made her laugh. The man she had come to care about. The person I've known. Her voice trembled slightly. Was that real? Seo-jun answered immediately. Every second. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just truth. And for the first time since arriving home, Nadege believed him. The tension eased slightly. Not completely. But enough. Enough to keep listening. Enough to stay. Enough to realize something dangerous. She wasn't afraid of Han Seo-jun. She was afraid of losing him. And that realization changed everything. Days passed. Then another week. Neither discussed leaving. Neither discussed feelings. Yet both knew. The connection between them had become impossible to ignore. One evening they sat together on the apartment rooftop. Snow covered nearby buildings. The city lights sparkled in the distance. Beautiful. Peaceful. For a while neither spoke. Then Co Jun broke the silence. Why did you stop? What? That night. She looked confused. When you found me. His gaze remained fixed on the city. You could have left. Nadej smiled softly. Because you needed help. Most people wouldn't have stopped. Maybe. Why did you? She thought for a moment. Then answered honestly. Because I hoped someone would do the same for me. Co Jun stared at her. Something inside him shifted. For years people had respected him. Feared him. Obeyed him. Wanted things from him. Money. Power. Influence. Favors. But Nadej wanted nothing. Nothing except for people to be kind. And somehow that simple truth affected him more than anything else. Then he said something he had never said before. Something nobody expected. Not even himself. You saved my life. Nadej smiled. I know. No. His voice softened. You really did. Their eyes met. The city disappeared. The noise disappeared. Everything disappeared. Except them. And in that moment, both finally understood. They were no longer fighting their feelings. They were already in love. They just hadn't said it yet. But what neither of them knew was that a storm far more dangerous than snow was approaching. Not through violence. Not through weapons. But through choices. Choices that would force Co Jun to decide between power and love. And very soon, that decision would change both their lives forever. For the first time in many years, Co Jun was afraid. Not of betrayal. Not of rivals. Not of losing money. Not even of death. He was afraid of losing one woman. And somehow that terrified him more than everything else combined. The realization followed him everywhere. It followed him during meetings. It followed him during phone calls. It followed him during the rare moments he returned to the world he once controlled. Because every time he left Nadej's apartment, every time he stepped back into the life of power and influence, one question haunted him. Was this life still worth keeping? For years, the answer would have been obvious. Of course it was. The empire represented everything. Survival, respect, control, security, the ability to never be powerless again. But things were different now. Because before meeting Nadej, Co Jun had never experienced something simple. Something ordinary. Something priceless. Peace. Meanwhile, Nadej was facing her own battle. She sat alone in her apartment one evening after work, staring at the empty chair across from her dining table. The chair where Co Jun usually sat. The apartment felt different when he wasn't there. Quieter. Colder. Lonelier. That realization made her smile and sigh at the same time. She never planned for this. She never wanted complications. Especially not complications wearing expensive suits and carrying dangerous secrets. Yet somehow he had become part of her daily life. Part of her routines. Part of her thoughts. Part of her heart. And that truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Outside, snow began falling again. Gentle flakes drifted through the night sky. The same kind of snow that had brought them together. The same snow that had nearly taken his life. What she didn't know was that at that exact moment, Co Jun was making the most important decision of his life. Far across the city, inside a private conference room overlooking Seoul, several powerful men sat around a long table. The atmosphere was tense. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Everyone waited. Then the doors opened. Co Jun entered. Immediately, every person stood. Respect. Fear. Habit. For years this room had belonged to him. For years his decisions shaped countless lives. But tonight felt different. Tonight carried a strange finality. Co Jun slowly walked toward the head of the table. His expression remained calm. Controlled. Yet those who knew him best noticed something unusual. A softness. A peace. A certainty. The kind that appears only after someone has finally made up their mind. One executive finally spoke. Chairman, we've been waiting. Co Jun nodded. Then sat down. Silence followed. The city lights glowed through the windows behind him. And then he said the last thing anyone expected. I am stepping down. The room froze. Nobody reacted. Nobody breathed. Several men genuinely believed they had misheard him. One executive blinked repeatedly. Another looked completely stunned. What? Co Jun remained calm. I am transferring leadership. Shock spread around the room. Years of loyalty. Years of strategy. Years of building an empire. And now he was simply walking away. Chairman, this makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. You built everything. Seo Jun glanced toward the window. No. His voice was quieter now. I sacrificed everything. Nobody understood. At least not completely. But Seo Jun understood. For years he had confused power with purpose. Control with happiness. Success with fulfillment. Then one woman showed him the difference. A woman who had absolutely nothing to gain from helping him. A woman who stopped her car during a snowstorm because she saw a human being suffering. Not a chairman. Not a powerful figure. Not a feared man. Just a person. And that changed him forever. Back at the apartment, Nadege received a message. Simple. Unexpected. Can you meet me? She smiled immediately. Then rolled her eyes. He always sent short messages. Never long ones. Never dramatic ones. Just enough words to make his point. Half an hour later she arrived at a small cafe overlooking the Han River. The place was quiet. Peaceful. Almost empty. Exactly the kind of location Seo Jun preferred lately. She spotted him immediately. He stood near a window, looking out at the water. For a moment, she simply watched him. The powerful chairman everyone feared looked strangely different now. Lighter. Almost free. Then he turned. And smiled. A real smile. Not the rare polite smile she occasionally saw. A genuine one. The kind that reached his eyes. The kind that transformed his entire face. Her heart immediately betrayed her. Again. What happened? Seo Jun pulled out a chair for her. She sat. Then noticed something unusual. He seemed nervous. Very nervous. The realization nearly made her laugh. Han Seo Jun. The man who intimidated entire boardrooms. Nervous. She leaned forward. What happened? For several seconds, he simply looked at her. As though trying to memorize every detail. Every expression. Every feature. Then finally he spoke. I resigned. Nadege blinked. What? I stepped down. The words felt unreal. Impossible. Surely she misunderstood. But when she looked into his eyes, she realized he was serious. Completely serious. Why? The answer came immediately. Without hesitation. Without calculation. Without fear. You. Everything inside her stopped. The world became quiet. The river disappeared. The cafe disappeared. Even time seemed to pause. Seo Jun continued. For most of my life, I believed power was everything. His voice remained calm. But then I met someone who cared more about people than status. His eyes never left hers. Someone who taught me there was another way to live. Nadege felt tears forming. Not because of what he had sacrificed, but because she understood exactly how difficult this was for him. This wasn't just a career change. This wasn't just a business decision. This was a man letting go of the identity he had carried for years. An identity built through sacrifice, pain, responsibility, loneliness. All because he wanted a future that included her. The emotion became overwhelming. Neither spoke for several moments. Neither needed to. Sometimes silence says everything. Weeks passed. Then months. And for the first time, both experienced something neither expected. Normal life. Simple life. Beautiful life. Seo Jun moved into a modest apartment. Nothing luxurious. Nothing excessive. Just enough. His former associates couldn't understand it. His former rivals couldn't believe it. The man who once controlled an empire now spent weekends grocery shopping, cooking, walking through parks, helping at community events. And somehow he seemed happier than ever. Nadege noticed it too. The tension that once lived behind his eyes slowly disappeared. The constant vigilance faded. The emotional walls weakened. Little by little, the man she loved finally allowed himself to heal. One afternoon they walked through a winter festival together. Children laughed nearby. Music drifted through the air. Snowflakes gently fell around them. The atmosphere felt magical. At one point Nadege stopped walking. Seo Jun turned. What? She smiled. You're different. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Different how? Happier. For a moment he didn't answer. Then he looked around. At the families. The lights. The snow. And finally back at her. Maybe. She laughed. Maybe. A rare grin appeared. Fine. I am. Nadege smiled. The answer warmed her heart. Because she knew how much it meant. Months ago, happiness wasn't even something Seo Jun discussed. Now he openly admitted it. That alone showed how far he had come. But what happened next changed everything once again. Spring arrived. The snow disappeared. Flowers began blooming throughout the city. Life felt brighter. Lighter. hopeful. One morning, Nadege arrived at the community clinic where she now worked part-time. Patients greeted her warmly. Children waved. Everything seemed normal, until a familiar luxury car slowly pulled into the parking area. Immediately, her heart accelerated. She recognized that car. She knew exactly who was inside. The driver's door opened. Han Seo-jun stepped out. No bodyguards. No assistants. No executives. Just him. And flowers. A large bouquet. Beautiful. Elegant. Completely unnecessary. Patients immediately became curious. Nurses exchanged smiles. Everyone sensed something important was about to happen. Nadege laughed softly. "What are you doing?" Seo-jun didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward her. One step at a time. Calm. Confident. Certain. Then something happened that nobody expected. He knelt. Right there. In front of everyone. The clinic fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every person watched. Nadege's eyes widened. Her heart nearly exploded. And then Seo-jun spoke. His voice was steady. Emotional. Honest. "The night you found me, I thought my life was ending." Tears immediately filled her eyes. The snow was taking everything. His gaze remained locked on hers. "But then you stopped." Several people nearby were already crying. "You saw a stranger." His voice softened. "A man nobody else cared about." Nadege covered her mouth, trying not to cry, failing completely. Seo-jun continued. "You saved my life." His own eyes became emotional. But more importantly, he smiled. "You saved my soul." The tears came freely now. Not just from Nadege. From several witnesses as well. Because everyone could feel the sincerity, the depth, the love. Seo-jun slowly opened a small velvet box. A ring sparkled inside. Beautiful. Simple. Perfect. Then came the question. The question that had lived inside his heart for months. "The world knew me as a powerful man." His voice cracked slightly. "But the happiest version of me exists only when I'm with you." Nadege was crying openly now. And so was he. For the first time. Without shame. Without hiding. Without fear. Then he asked. "Nadege Laurent." The entire clinic held its breath. "Will you marry me?" The silence that followed felt endless. Yet everyone already knew the answer. Because the way she looked at him said everything. The way she smiled said everything. The way she cried said everything. Nadege nodded. Once. Then twice. Then laughed through tears. Yes. The crowd erupted instantly. Applause. Cheers. Celebration. Pure happiness. Seo-jun stood. And for the first time since the snowstorm that brought them together, neither feared the future. Because they would face it together. Months later, they stood beneath a sky filled with sunlight. Surrounded by friends. Surrounded by people who genuinely cared about them. Not because of wealth. Not because of influence. Not because of power. But because of love. The journey had begun with a dying man in the snow. It ended with two healed hearts choosing each other. And perhaps that was the greatest miracle of all. This story reminds us that love is not about status, power, wealth, or reputation. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is also the loneliest. Sometimes the kindest act changes an entire life. Nadege saved Seo-jun physically when she stopped her car during a snowstorm. But she also saved him emotionally by showing him compassion without expecting anything in return. Meanwhile, Seo-jun proved that true love requires sacrifice. He learned that power means very little if you have nobody to share life with. Together, they discovered that healing happens when trust replaces fear, when loyalty replaces betrayal, and when love becomes more important than status. And in the end, the thing that transformed a feared man wasn't power. It was kindness. If you made it this far, let us know where you're watching from, and comment your favorite moment below, like this video, and subscribe to _threads for more emotional Mafia love stories.